What is up? Welcome back to Drummers on Drumming, a podcast powered by Big Fat Snare Drum. I'm back with another installment of Big Fat 5, which is where I ask some of my favorite drummers to come on the show and talk about what made them them. So my name is Ben Hilsinger, and my guest today is Ari Hoenig, a drummer, composer, and educator known in the drumming and jazz world for his pitch bending techniques and melodic approach to soloing, especially using the drum set in ways that mimic harmonic instruments. Ari's drumming stretches the imagination while still deeply serving the song, and he's worked with everyone from Chris Potter to Kurt Rosenwinkel to Joshua Redman, and his solo projects are a masterclass in expression, creativity, and risk-taking. Full disclosure, my main microphone decided to go on holiday during our chat, so this is just Zoom audio, but you probably wouldn't have noticed if I didn't say anything, so there you go. Hope you enjoy some of the records that helped shape Ari Hoenig into the fiercely original voice he is today. Cheers. What was your criteria to make at least a top 5?
Great, excellent. So what I did was to be able to answer this question more effectively. I felt about a year ago, I made a list of my top, I believe it's 45 records, and I did this through Patreon, which is the kind of the platform that I use for education stuff. You know, I released kind of, I think four or five at a time. And then I play it for a minute and a half or so, talk about one track from the record, and then just talk about in general how that record affected me. And so I did that for all of those records in different segments. So this is actually really just coming directly from this Patreon series. It's called Lockdown Tracks. And the idea is that, and this is not my idea, but the idea is this: if you were on a desert island and you could only pick, these records to come with you, which is such a ridiculous notion anyway. But anyway, it's kind of fun.
It's electricity, you have a record player. Yeah.
Exactly, right. I'm thinking CDs, you're not going to be able to plug anything in, but maybe they're going to be good for fishing somehow.
Exactly.
I would prefer probably like some matches.
Maybe food, fresh water. I don't know.
Fresh water would be good to get you going for a few days. So anyway, it became about 45 records. And I'm probably going to add maybe one more segment to it, but that's the idea. So I just picked 5 records from that, and I gave them to you.
Okay. What non-drummer do you think has affected you the most as a player and your creativity?
Keith Jarrett. Probably second to him, Wynton Marsalis. Likely, and this is where I'm not talking about like my parents and stuff like that.
Sure,
that would.
Because I know they are musicians as well.
Yeah, that wouldn't be really fair, right? Because of course they're going to be the most influential,
sure,
right? But yeah, I mean, things that I've kind of discovered on my own and listened to on my own research. Yeah, that would be it. And I mean, Keith Jarrett for his music, but his compositions, and it's really affected the way that I write music, and then just my whole kind of like musical. What's important to me, conceptually, blah, blah, blah. But Wynton Marsalis as well. I mean, both masters at playing standards and showing you themselves, of giving you a look at how they hear music through playing standard compositions, standard songs. It doesn't sound this is how this Have You Met Miss Jones goes. If you hear Keith Jarrett play Have You Met Miss Jones, you don't hear Have You Met Miss Jones, you hear Keith. You hear Wynton Marsalis play Have You Met Miss Jones, you hear how does Wynton hear music? So to me, that's something that they both have really in common, and something that's was really important to me, to learn a lot of songs and be able to express myself through songs. Not saying not to play the songs, but to be able to play the song, but then also really express who I am and how I hear music as a part of that song, And so that's been something for me, especially in the jazz context, side of things, to really be able to dig deep into.
Let's just hop into the first one. So the album is Belonging. The artist is, of course, Keith Jarrett. Key tracks, Spiral Dance, and Jon Christensen is the drummer. So take it away, and then we'll listen to a few minutes of Spiral Dance.
Yeah, Jon Christensen's on drums, Pally Danielson on bass, Jan Garbarek on saxophone, of course, Keith Jarrett on piano. This is Keith's European Quartet. Just the general vibe of this tune, I love the groove. The feel is it's so kind of funky without being funk. It just has a really strong emotional quality to me too, and I think part of that is through the groove, but part of that is just through the composition. Jan Garbarek, the way that he plays saxophone, is a very kind of a piercing sound, which is it just kind of hits me. And just the composition itself, it's not a super simple melody. And I generally do, really like simple songs, but it has a way of still being very kind of folksy, even while kind of dealing with a lot of this kind of like advanced jazz composition, harmony, even rhythm. Yeah. I grew up playing classical music. I played the violin first. I played piano after the violin, and really classical, lessons. And I grew up with a lot of Baroque music from my parents, listening to that. A lot of choral music, which my dad is a choral conductor. So that's really the music that I really hear. I grew up with Beethoven, Bach, Mozart, probably some Chopin as well. That's just what I grew up with. Jazz, no. I really didn't hear jazz. From folk music, definitely heard some folk music, some American, traditional music, kind of like slave songs, those kind of things. Definitely those kind of things were played a lot for me growing up. Jazz was not played, but I decided that I wanted to play the drums when I was 12, and it was just kind of a discovery. First, it was just trying to play what I heard on the radio, pop tunes, basically. And then it was more discovering things for myself. I definitely, listened to rock, metal, and jazz. And I started playing jazz probably, when I was like maybe 13 or 14. And I think I started really liking it, 15, 16.
Okay.
And then really understanding it more when I was 17, 18. You know what I mean? Like, it grew with age and just with like focus. And the more that I listened, the more I would hear. And it was just so fascinating to me that it wasn't just like a hook that you heard 5 times in a song and you're like, oh, I like it, and you're singing all the time. It was, you listen to a song 100 times, and then every time you listen to it, you hear something different, focusing all of that brain power on something other than your eyes, and really just like listening for things that are new. And it just kind of hit me, right? Like listening to music, like it did for all of us musicians. So, wow, it's like music it's a very deep thing, and it goes really far as you let your brain take it, Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much my history. Jazz didn't really come from my parents, though.
Well, let's just hop into number 2. So the album is Joe Jones' Trio, the Everest Years. Key tracks is the Philadelphia Bound and it is Joe Jones on drums. So take it away, and then we'll listen to some Philadelphia Bound.
Papa Joe Jones, father of jazz drumming. I mean, Papa Joe Jones just influenced everybody so much. I think my favorite thing about Papa Joe Jones playing, although there's just many, many, many things, but his feel, his pocket is just like, it's impeccable. It's really astounding. Like when he swings, like there's nothing, you can't say anything else, there's nothing else to say. And that's the thing that really gets me about his playing. Now he has a lot of tricks and he's very slick and he is, very complex, tons of technique, all of that. Right. But that's not even the thing that really just, nails me up against the wall. It's just his feel. When he swings with his hands, plays with his hands, he swings with brushes, whatever. You give him anything, any little utensils, chopsticks or whatever, the guy's going to just swing a hole in the wall the size of like an elephant paw. Tommy Bryant and Ray Bryant, bass and piano. Whenever you have two brothers that are playing together in a band, something special happens. Two sisters too do the same thing. But you have this relationship that's not just going around doing sessions, learning jazz in music school. This is like you come up as a tradition. This has happened, and I can give you a bunch of examples of drummers playing. What about like Aston Barrett and Carlton Barrett, from Bob Marley's band? I mean, what you're going to get is you're going to get this sound where things are not necessarily like quantized perfectly, but there's this understanding of communication, which is compelling. So anyway, Ray Bryant, Tommy Bryant, and piano and bass, and then Papa Joe Jones, not to be confused with Philly Joe Jones, who came later. Another great drummer, but we're not talking about Philly Joe Jones right now.
Yeah. Well, here is Philadelphia Bound. So number 3, the album is Trilogy. The artist is Kenny Garrett. Key tracks, Wayne's Thing, and the drummer is Brian Blade.
Yeah. So Blade, very influential drummer for me. I think I heard him maybe when I was 18 or 19 first, just on records. I think the first things that came out were stuff with like Daryl Grant, piano player. I don't know if he's from Portland. He lives in Portland. And so, yeah, Brian's playing was just always really funky and slick. And he had just this ability of always kind of complementing what was going on really effectively, dynamically as well. He had master of contrast, which I love. He was able to draw you into the music using kind of extreme contrasts. Dynamic is the kind of the obvious one. So, and then, also just had a very strong emotional component behind just like everything that he would play. And this would come out not just because I didn't see him live till a lot later, but this would come out on records too. And so I was very fortunate to be able to play in a lot of projects and a lot of bands and a lot of tours that Brian played on the record of the artist. And we're talking about like probably like 12 or 15, like a lot. And that started happening kind of when I was in New York. So not only did he influence me, in a very kind of organic way, like, hey, check this guy out from New Orleans, but also in a very professional way, like, hey, I got to learn these tunes. Oh, Blade's on the record. Great. I can't complain about that because I'm not like, oh, yeah, that's cool what he's doing, but I would really do it really differently. I mean, it wasn't even like that. It was just like, well, let me just check out what Blade's doing and then I'm going to learn something from it,
Yeah.
And so he really did end up influencing my playing in that way as well.
Well, here is Wayne's Thing with Brian Blade on drums. All right, number 4. The artist is Miles Davis, key track Nefertiti, and of course Tony Williams on drums. So take it away, then we'll listen to some Nefertiti.
Yeah. So this is, kind of obviously Tony Williams, very, very influential. I really love the way he plays drums on this, but also it's very compositional. And I love the kind of arrangement of just playing the melody over and over, and the way that Tony builds the piece. It's super melodic and super interesting from a melodic and rhythmic standpoint. So he really engages the band, engages the listener by playing things that are not stock, that are not obvious. They're very clear. There's a lot of clarity in it, but it's not necessarily expected. I feel like if you're going to listen to Tony, it's a very clear drum sound, and it's just a good way to really be able to hear what Tony's playing. If I would just say one word about this, it would be vibe.
Well, that being said, here's Nefertiti.
The way that he played kind of open hi-hat sound and ringy cymbal, and contrasted it with closed and soft cymbal, open or loud, like again, master of contrast, wet, dry, some people refer to it as, right? But the open being just like a sudden kind of dynamic, like not afraid to play louder than the rest of the band sometimes, right? Like, you don't obviously want to play louder than the whole band all the time, but not afraid to do it sometimes. And so I think that it added a certain kind of aggressiveness that it was really copied, and just a certain amount of confidence on the kit, but just musically being able to dictate where the music would go. That's kind of the great thing about Tony's playing, is that he wasn't afraid to grab the music and take it different directions, and I think that's why people love to play with him.
This episode is brought to you by Big Fat Snare Drum, specifically the Big Fat Snare Drum Bargain Bin. We're talking brand new heads that aren't scratched or dented. We just have too many, so get them for cheap. We've also dropped some new full coverage textile cloth designs, and our Pick 3 bundles are now live. It's an easy way to outfit your whole kit with many of our most popular heads. Just choose one of these 3 size sets, 10, 12, 14, 12, 14, 16, or 13, 14, 16. Go check out all of that at bigfatsnaredrum.com. Where did you initially start doing the touching the drums, changing the tone, making the drum give specific notes and trying to mimic melodies and whatnot? Where did that come from?
Well, for me, song has always been primary for me. I was always singing. Singing was a big part of my musical history. Again, classical music, and so really knowing a lot of songs was something that I was just kind of fortunate to have been given as a kid, growing up. So I heard a couple of drummers that made me realize that it was okay to express myself in that way on the drums because a lot of times we're just like, oh, we're going to play this instrument. We're going to play it in a way that we're supposed to be played. Okay, how were we supposed to play the drums? We're supposed to like ding, ding, a ding, ding, a ding, ding, a ding, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so at some point I realized, oh, it's not just about that, like what you're supposed to play. It's about expressing yourself how you feel. And I think the first drummer that I heard, I think, do that was Earl Harvin. He really played the melody of not necessarily the notes of the songs, but it was clear that was the melody. It was like the contour of the melody, the rhythm of the melody, and the melody was expressed. And so it was pretty profound because I'm thinking, oh, the drums are playing the melody. It's and so some people might think, well, that's weird, that's boring. I'd rather hear an instrument play it and they could play it in pitch, right? But it wasn't about that. It was about the creativity. It was about the idea, about the emotion, and the song. And it's not so much about playing the song correctly or perfectly, but it's about putting the sound of the song in the listener's ear. And so that's really what I wanted to do. And that's what I realized that I could do by playing the melodies on the drums, is not like trying to perform it well or perfectly, right, without a mistake. That's not really the point at all. It's to give the listener something, let them relate what they hear to something. It's to let them feel something. So if you know the tune Jingle Bells and I play Jingle Bells on the drums, all those things are gonna come rushing back to you about your history with this song. See what I'm saying? It's not about the notes. It's much more about the phrasing and the contour. So Earl Harvin really showed me that. He taught me that. One of my biggest influences as a drummer, and other ones too. Jeff Hamilton did it also in a similar kind of way, not necessarily with the exact notes of the melodies, but really, really musically just playing a song very clearly. This is a piece. This is a song. I recorded 2 solo drum records. My first 2 records are solo drums. I couldn't afford a band, honestly. That's really what was behind it. And I wasn't really much of a composer at that point, but I did have things that I wanted to get out and express. And I did have some groups that I would play with that I was able to bring a CD on the road. So I recorded some stuff and I printed them up, was able to, make music, make a song on the drums as an instrument. Jim White was another drummer who was, very influential for me doing that. And, just showing me that you can improvise a song just on the drums and not think of it like this free solo and playing all the sounds at once and just a whole bunch of licks, but actually a piece of music. And you can develop it like a piece of music, and you can, end it like a piece of music. Like you just actually play a piece of music, and you can do that and you can improvise. It's possible. And so my first record, Time Travels, is really more than anything. It's more improvisations, as well as me playing songs that I had learned the heads to, bebop to, mostly. And then my second solo record is called Life of a Day, is a little more thought out, still just doing solo drums without a bunch of percussion toys or any, studio tricks. It's really just me and the drums, but I kind of thought out the arrangements a little bit more beforehand. And so it's has a little less improvisation than Time Travel does.
All right. So number 5, the album is Monk's Dream. The artist is Thelonious Monk. Key track. Listen, all these, I know I say it every time, listen to the whole records. I just force you to talk about a key track, but Monk's Dream is the one you chose, and then Frankie Dunlop. So take it away, and then we'll listen to some Monk's Dream.
Okay. So Frankie Dunlop, the melody, it's the melodic interjections, especially in the melodies, but also in the improvisations, the way that, that melodic communication would happen in all the songs. Monk's tunes are already very kind of rhythmic, very clear, but my favorite thing about Frankie Dunlop is the way that he complemented the melodies. So, I mean, you kind of got to dig a little bit into Frankie Dunlop's playing, but, I kind of wanted to include some Monk too, because I think Monk in general as a player and a composer has actually influenced me really kind of highly too. Like I mentioned Keith Jarrett and Marcellus, but I'd say Monk's got to be pretty close up there as well.
For what reason specifically?
I would say compositions, like the songs, rhythms that are not stock, awkward in a lot of ways, melodic ideas that have kind of awkward tendencies, not maybe making things that were previously very unhip, at least awkward and maybe even on the way to being hip, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
The harmony is obviously very dissonant, but there's just so much more to it than that. And it's one of those things where the more you listen to that, there's so much depth in what's going on there. I think it really has to do with rhythm, really specifically.
Okay. Well, that's your Big Fat Five. If people want to see you, how can they keep track of you? Just your website, your Patreon, Instagram. Where do you communicate the most with people about what you have going on?
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, really all those places for sure. My website is arihoenig.com. So that's pretty straightforward. I'd recommend that you just go right there and just sign my mailing list so I can send you an email once every few months just to kind of give you an update of where I'm going to be, where I'm going to be playing, maybe if there's a record out, something like that. It's fairly minimal. Instagram's, one way to, at least you'll know like a day before, but you want to be able to see if I'm going to be playing in your town, like, maybe a week before or something like that. So it's maybe better to just sign the email list. But yeah, of course, Instagram. Patreon is a really great way to not only to stay in touch with me, because it is a good way to contact me and ask question or talk to me or whatever. It's great for that. But also just to have access to all of the educational content that I do. That's really what I use now. Been doing it for about 4 or 5 years. I got about 200 videos, tutorial videos of many, many different subjects that all members can access, and you can search for what you're looking for. There's really a ton of stuff there. It's not the kind of thing where it's like you're starting to play the drums and you want a step-by-step process about how to get better at drums. It's not that. It's really more of an insight into how I play, how I think, things that have influenced me. There's still a lot of different categories, but I think it could be, very inspiring for different levels and also different musicians, not just drummers.
And that's the show. If you're listening on a platform that allows ratings and reviews, do that. It helps more people find the show, so it'll get bigger and better, and hopefully I'll have a chance to sell out one day. But you'll be an OG listener that can brag to all your friends. Anyways, why don't you go and check us out at bigfatsnaredrum.com and follow us on all the socials. Just search for Big Fat Snare Drum and you will find us. The show is edited in part using iZotope RX Audio Editor. It's amazing, so go check that out at iZotope.com. And thanks again to Gunnar Olsen for the theme music. Bye!